figure out that you're talking about positive.
Because you always lose them? Or?
I'm losing on them.
Recording in progress.
Good afternoon and welcome to Gothet Regional District Committee of the Whole for May 27th, 2026. And I'd like to acknowledge that the meeting is taking place on the traditional territory of Tla'amin Nation. Directors, you have the agenda in front of you. Can I please have a motion to approve the agenda? Director Gisborne, seconded by Director Lennox. Thank you. Any discussion? None, all in favor? Adoption of the minutes of April 29th. Are there any errors or omissions? Seeing no hands, a motion to adopt the minutes. Please, Director Lennox and Director Gisborne. Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Carried. We are now on to delegations, and I would welcome Staff Sergeant Dyson, who is the commander of our local detachment here, and you are going to be providing us a quarterly report. And thank you, my very much for being here.
Thank you, Chair. Appreciate the being allowed to come up today.
Sorry, Staff Sergeant. I'm just in fairness to Director Powell, I may have a spotty connection because I didn't see him vote and hasn't changed his expression. So I thought you'd give him a chance to maybe go verbal on any of our votes or anything.
He stops.
Yeah, we lost him. So I just thought it was fair to him.
Yeah, thank you.
I think he's still here. He just
Okay.
Sorry. Sorry for the interruption.
Okay.
There we go.
There we go.
He's there. Okay, please go ahead.
Again, thank you for allowing me to present today. I apologize, it's a little bit late. We had some of the data we wanted to go through to make sure we were correct before we present. So for the fourth quarter of the 25-26 quarterly report, we have the following information. Just some clarification about our fiscal year. Our fiscal year runs from April 31st to March 31st. So what we're covering is the first 3 months of 2025 as we present this in the court. And again, this is the statistics for outside of the city of Powell River only. Our total calls for service for the fourth quarter were down 8% from the same quarter in 2025. And we have a 10% decrease in total calls for service for the fiscal year 2024-25 over 25-26. Our check well-being calls for the fourth quarter were the same. They're down quite a bit, 23% over the fiscal year. Our mental health act calls, we've had a decrease in those from 10 to 6 and a slight decrease year over as well. Our unspecified assistance calls, slight increase in those, very, very minimal, but a fairly substantial decrease of 34% for the fiscal period. Our missing persons call, again, basically the same, but we do have a bit of an increase year over. What we have found in those are usually missing youths who are away for a period of time that they don't want to be found, and then they show up on their own. Impaired driving for the quarter, we're down from 9 to 6, which is good. And overall, we're down over the period. We have some fairly active members that are actively seeking these out. So that's a really good sign that it's gotten out there. The chance of apprehension has been increased. Persons crimes, slight increase for the quarter. But overall, a 4.5% decrease over the fiscal year. Assaults, again, virtually the same for the quarter, down slightly for the fiscal year. Sexual offenses, it's good to see that we had 0 for the fourth quarter, and we're down by 50% for the whole year. Harassment files, again, down very, very slightly for the quarter, up a little bit to date. Uttering threats filed, we've had a fairly large increase in those for the period. I have not looked at what specifically has caused that, but over the year, we're down about 10% for the year. Property crime, we're up from 28 to 39, and there's another slide which will explain some of that, and I have some data for you on that. Overall, we do have a slight decrease in property crime. And what you will find, bike theft is down year to date. That many to begin with. Break and enter. This is where we saw the biggest increase and where we did some research to figure out, make sure I was aware of what was going on. Residential B&Es are down. Business B&Es are up significantly in the QRD area. We have attributed all but one of those, I believe it was, to a single individual, and we're still trying to get enough information to lay a charge on that. He has since left the area, and not surprisingly, as soon as he left, our business B&E stopped. So, pretty sure that that's who it was, and we know where he is. So when the time comes, if we're able to gather enough evidence to be able to lay a charge, we'll know where he is and how to get him. The downside of if we do that is we'll have to bring him back to face charges, and want him in town any longer than we absolutely have to. We are doing our best to try to track him down, or track down enough evidence to be able to lay a charge on that. And the business owners who were targeted, I'm sure would appreciate that. Total break and enters year to date. Residential are down from 12 to 9. Businesses are up by that considerable amount. And if you go back to that one, you'll see that the increase over the last year is almost exactly the amount that we were up in that quarter from that one particular individual. Thefts were the same for the quarter. For the year, they are down by 43%, which is great to see. That's overall thefts. We do have a suspect that we're targeting at right now that is involved in a lot of the break-ins to vehicles, loose items on properties and scattering. So we're trying to have that person addressed and removed from town. Hopefully we'll be able to get that dealt with. That from vehicles, for the fourth quarter there was 0, a little over double over the year to date. Theft of vehicles, it's a slight increase, although it is double from 1 to 2. But for the year, we've seen quite a few more thefts of vehicles, which is a trend we're not liking exactly. We've got some ideas anecdotally we've heard from some of our clients about why this is, but we haven't been able to confirm any of those. Frauds, almost double for the fourth quarter. And year to date is up 41%. What we're seeing there is a lot of the online frauds. There's been some Bitcoin type frauds, and a lot of our elderly are being targeted with deepfake type things. And they've been fairly successful in our area, unfortunately, with that. And we're doing our best to try to address some of those, but it's been challenging. Our community policing member has gone out to some of the gathering places for the elderly to try to address this more directly, and hopefully we'll see an improvement there. Mischief up from 8 to 12 for the quarter, down for the fiscal year, which is good. 32%, which is a fairly substantial amount. Our drug offenses for the quarter are down to 0, and year to date they remain static at 6 for the year. Our drug trafficking specifically is up over the year from 1 to 3, none in the fourth quarter. We've been seeing a lot of our drug trafficking happening within the city locally recently. Weapons offenses down to 0, which is good, up slightly from 4 to 6 over the year. And breakdown of our calls for each area. I'll show you. Sorry, that savory was up. Again, those calls tend to come in bunches for savory, and there's a bit of an increase on Texada. That's all for my prepared presentation.
Thank you very much, Staff Sergeant. I'm sure directors will have questions for you. We'll open it up now. 2 questions that I recognize Director Elliott, then Director Gisborne.
Thank you, Staff Sergeant. I am glad to hear that we're able to identify particular people to try and address the issues we're having. You talked about removal from town. I'm just curious what tools are used for that, are we talking about incarceration or registration programs that are in a different town or some other way of doing that?
So there's a couple of different options that we use there. Obviously incarceration is one for some of our higher volume offenders. If they're not sort of getting the hint through other means, incarceration is one of them. The courts recently have chosen to give people some no-go zones that are fairly substantive, depending on sort of a lot of their background and stuff. If they're not from here and they've come here and started committing crimes, then they get a no-go to that, which doesn't help other areas, but helps us, which is sort of our target for here. And that is something that's very good. It's been used. Another thing that if it's a person that tends to be active at night, getting curfews is fairly effective. And we have some members that are extremely effective at checking curfews to make sure those people are where they're supposed to be, when they're supposed to be there. As far as treatment options, there have been some of that. The courts have meted out, which have been fairly successful for the correct candidates. Some people it doesn't have much of an effect, but for some it works very well.
Okay, so for folks that are just having no-go zones and they go somewhere else, that's an overall systemic thing where they just keep using up resources, right? Okay, thank you very much.
You're correct.
Thank you, Director Gisborne.
No, thank you. The first question kind of tags on Director Elliott's. When an individual who we've kind of identified, but don't have enough evidence to charge, and we find out that they've moved to another community, do you have like things in place so that you can notify the departments in the other community to go like, hey, we have an individual that we're concerned about, keep an eye out? Or is that kind of more of a challenge without having evidence to pass that information along?
It actually tends to work in reverse, where when they leave, we don't know where they're going. So they'll end up taking up residence in some other place. Their activity will pick up there, and then those people, that department or that agency will call us and say, what do you know? What do you have? If they don't have direct access to our files. So it usually tends to work a little bit the opposite. If we know where they're going, sometimes some of our members will contact there and say, hey, just so you know, this particular person is now in your area. They're likely to be active. Keep an eye out for them. Or if you have, sometimes there's a very specific method that they commit their offenses. So we'll let them know, if you're seeing this, this might be somebody to look for. And it's actually worked. We had the same thing happen here recently, where a person showed up here from Seashell, and Seashell got a hold of us and said, if you start to see these types of events, it might be this person, and it took a day.
Okay. Yeah, because of course the big concern is that we don't want it to end up being like a criminal exchange program kind of thing. My second question, I see the stats for impaired driving, but I'm wondering about the stats for like speeding and dangerous driving. Do we get those stats? Could they be presented in the future? Because one of the challenges, of course, in Paradise Valley is we got a nice straight stretch, and then people love the speed. And I also want to give a kudos to the RCMP, because I saw the RCMP out there giving tickets in this last month. So I just wanted to say thank you very much. And of course, I do, even when I'm like 100 yards away from the road, I can hear when someone's speeding. So good job out there. But yeah, in the future, it'd be nice to see like how is the speeding being targeted, maybe where you're finding some of these hot spots, because we also do work with Ministry of Transportation and having joint meetings, and then having some of that data can then help us maybe advocate for speed changes or more safety reductions or safety improvements, speed reductions.
So absolutely, I can include some of our traffic stats in the report. That's not a problem at all. We work, as far as sort of traffic enforcement, there's two different ways that we do it. We have members in our office that sort of lean that way. We do not have a dedicated traffic position in our detachment at this point. It's something I would like to see, and we'll have to see if we can get that through all the steps that needs to happen. We also have our area, being a numbered highway within the province, is covered by the BC Highway Patrol unit. They don't spend a lot of time out here, but I do direct ways with their North Island commander, and we try to get them over here. And they work sort of within the city as well, and they go out onto the highways and try to be visible out there. When they get on the ferry and start coming over here, it gets up pretty quick that they're coming. So
CBSE was on the ferry.
that's the other one. I was actually talking about that the other day, where the vehicle is the one that's announced pretty quick.
Thank you. That's it for me. Thank you, Jerry.
Okay, thanks, Director Gisborne. I have Director Lennox and then Southwood.
Thanks, Chair. Thank you for your report. And, you know, I should start with thanks, I think, all the time because you guys do a lot of good work out there for us. Savory long weekends are underway, you know, and I think the first May long weekend was quiet. I'm not sure you were able to provide any coverage, but I know we've been talking about anything we can do, or especially me, to support that special fund or whatever special, you know, in your new fiscal year. Really want to continue to support that because it's as soon as you guys show up, nothing happens, and that's the whole goal. And especially with fires and the things like that's part of it, is that kind of presence really settles the kids down, settles the locals down, because we get a little wild sometimes too. But I think you understand the point. So it really, advocacy, that's some of the things we can do. So please let me know. Parking, again, I really want to say thanks for your presence on the island recently, the trouble to get over there and really start looking at insurances and looking at how people are parking. Really, directors, I think you're familiar with our fire department struggles with access along the front row, especially in some of those parking areas. And that enforcement, again, goes a long way to sending a message. It's about the message through the community and your statistics, you know, reporting accuracy, 400% increase on Savory could went from 0 to 4 calls. Well, that is the messaging, again, getting out that we need to call even for the smaller items. So my question is, I notice your drug trafficking statistics are 0, right, for the quarter, and pretty low. I think for myself and for the people, a lot of the people I represent, you know, that's who they'd rather target in this world of, you know, people that are struggling with addictions, you know, aren't the ones we want to target, the people that are trying to benefit from that. So is there any struggles, you know, to be, you know, that you can share with us about maybe that part of your job locally, like really, or is it, you know, a local problem? Is it more, I don't know. I'm just trying to understand why we can't really enforce with the traffickers.
So I'll cover off all three of the points that you brought.
Thanks.
Seasonal policing, our business case is in. It was sent back for a little bit of an update and it went back in. Unfortunately, I didn't get a response in time for the May long weekend, but that is still part of our request. So we'll look at that and we'll continue the same thing going forward. I heard that they are reviewing them now for that was on Tuesday, that our district is reviewing them now. So we're still hopeful that we'll be able to see an improvement in our seasonal policing funding. Parking, not to let the cat out of the bag, but I think in the very, very, very near future, you will see some enforcement on that. So hopefully you'll see some activity and that will
you hear that, folks that are listening?
That will be something that's addressed and that will be an ongoing thing. It's not going to be a one-off. That won't be, you know, every week or anything, but it will be something that we continue to have on our radar for something to deal with. As far as trafficking goes, really, I mean, it's an ongoing problem. We have been effective in what we were doing. Unfortunately, I only have a 3-person GI section who does the bulk of those. I mean, you do get the one-offs where our general duty members find somebody, but they tend to see the marked cars and hide, whereas the unmarked and the plainclothes members aren't as seen as much. I mean, it's simply a resourcing issue to be out there and to make sure that we're targeting the correct people, you know, the people that are, we had a very successful operation here locally where we gathered a whole lot of illicit substances that could have caused lots of damage. And that file is ongoing. So there are others that we're targeting, we're looking at, a couple that are in the regional district area to have a look at. But things come up that kind of divert resources. For example, the incident off of Savory on Thursday, the entire GI unit has been redeployed to try to deal with that and gather information in the early things. So those things like that do tend to derail some of the ongoing projects. There's also another one that is ongoing right now in the regional district that we're hoping to see some fruit for in the next month or two.
Thanks. I know those cases are probably a lot of work too, and thanks for your work on Savory. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm just thinking about
the answer.
Let's come back to you, okay? Hold that thought. Director Southcott is next, and then anyone who has not yet asked a question this round.
How transient are offenders, generally speaking? Locals, not locals.
It very much is a person to person thing. You don't see as many transients here as I have at other places. Strictly because you don't come to Powell River unless you're coming to Powell River. Your car doesn't break down here on the way to somewhere else, for example. But there is a transient here, but it's less than other places. Most of our offenders have been here for maybe they're not, lifetime Powell Riverites, but they've been here for quite some time.
Okay, thank you, Director Southcott. Anyone who has not yet asked a question, so I'll put myself on that list, and I have two really quick questions. One is the slight increase of incidents on Texada. What kind of incidents are you referring to? Like it says on the last page of your presentation, Texada went up from 59 to 65. It had a series of decreases over the last little while. So I'm just wondering, is there something that you might attribute that to, and what type of offenses are you seeing increased?
I haven't broken it down specifically for Texada. I do know that we have, our new member there has been fairly active. So it's possible that it's, sort of more proactive, and self-generated files there. I haven't broken it down, but I can look into that and see if there's anything specific. Nothing has been brought to my attention as this has been an issue, on Texada recently.
Thank you. And my final question is, have you received any calls about pollution, like people burning outside things that they shouldn't have, or has any of that come to your attention?
The last time I looked into that was when I got a letter from the district. And I looked at the 6 months previous to that, and we had no calls to us in that regard during that time period.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. Hey, round two, Director Elliott.
I got a question out of your conversation about trafficking. And trafficking is often distribution from a larger organization that is not necessarily community centered. And so I'm curious about how resources nationwide and province-wide might investigate organized networks on a broader basis, and whether we're hooked in or whether you guys are all just out there individually in communities trying to get a handle on this.
Yeah, we definitely work together with other agencies. As a matter of fact, all of our GI members last week were in Victoria meeting with the PTEP group specifically on that. They were discussing organized crime, some of those things, with drug investigations being a part of that. CFSCU, we're also connected with them to try to make sure that we're, if there's a trend that we're not aware of, or if where the drugs are some of the drugs for the larger players are coming from, we've been able to sort of link that to a specific group, and we're able to work with them to target that as well.
Okay, so is there a sort of a formal task group that organizes all that, or is it is it self-organized, or do you have a higher level coordinated program that organizes the broader
Yes.
search? Yeah,
Yes, there's a larger group. Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing no hands, Staff Sergeant, thank you very much for your
Thank you, Chair. Appreciate you having me.
And I guess we'll see you.
Try not to make it quite as long. Thank you.
No, that's great. Thank you so much. We have one unregistered delegation. Mr. Marty Rowe, have I said that correct? Would you like to join us at the table, Marty? Okay.
Thank you for having me.
Sandy McCormick, I'm the chair of this committee, and you will have 10 minutes to make your presentation. I understand it's about the Climbing Association. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for hearing me. My name is Marty. I'm the treasurer for the Climbing Association, the outdoor one. Our acronym is QCAD. Yeah, I'm here regarding the service provider agreement, which is the insurance for volunteers. A lot of in the 2016 trails plan, one of the key findings was to promote trail maintenance and more trails in the area, was to have a service provider agreement to protect volunteers, and kind of emphasizes how volunteers is one of our main superpowers in the area. And yeah, the Climbing Association is newer and it was not established in 2016, so it did not, when the insurance was rolled out, it did not become a part of that. But I am here today asking if you would consider extending that policy to the Climbing Association to maintain the trails in the QRD as well. Yeah, typically the insurance policies for small groups are quite large in terms of the finances, and we are pretty small. To have the municipal coverage would make a huge difference for our small organization. Yeah, that's all I want to say. Thank you for your consideration.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'd just like to get a word from staff before we open it up for questions. And corporate officer, are they eligible for coverage?
Thank you, Chair. I believe this was written by. Here we have for item 8.6 that the committee recommend to the board that the board approve the Cathy Regional District entering into a service provider agreement with the Q Climbers Access and Development.
Okay, that's the same group then.
That's right.
Okay, perfect. So you're speaking to that recommendation.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Thank you very much. Now I understand. Questions? Okay, Lennox and Osborne.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just quickly, like Q Climbers, a bit newer to the group, to the area, but how many people are in your, it might be in the report, but like how many folks are involved? Like you anticipate getting out there and.
Yeah, so we are approximately 50 members.
I think it did say that.
And yeah, with the Eldred Valley located northeast of town, there's a lot of out of town climbers too. So there is a tourism aspect as well that a lot of people visit for that reason. A lot is maybe a general term. Obviously it's not as much as the boating community, but it is a source of tourism in the area.
And just follow up, and again, I think I read that, my interpretation, it is focusing on the Eldred, but you expand your.
Yeah, there's yeah, the Eldred is a little far, and ideally
That's
not every climbing day is in the Eldred. We have a few other locations. Some of the main ones are the Lois Lake Bluffs, located just southeast of Lois Lake. There's a lot of development that's happened at Rose Bluff, which is on the east side of Haslam. That's a pretty big rock face there. And then there's 5 or 6 other smaller areas that aren't as large, but still contain cliffs climbable.
cool.
Yeah, so there is some local areas, and community has been growing. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Director Lennox.
Oh, Director Lennox already asked several of my questions. So I guess let's see which ones do I have left. When did your organization get started?
The organization started in 2017. In 2020, COVID kind of disrupted and it lost its steam, and we restarted in January of this year. So there was a pause of 5 years there, and it's a new board. A few of the original board members are still there, but there's been new energy, and yeah, I think it's going very well, and it go far.
Good. I've been hearing a lot of good things about the climbing in that country. And I guess my last question I have left on the list, because they've already been asked, what kind of trails are you focused on? Like, is it the trails on the ground, or does it also include like essentially like a cliff face, where I've never really done climbing.
Yeah. No, that's a good question. Yeah, so this would be all the approach trails, and some of the trails are also used for hikers and dog walkers and just outdoors. So it is they would be multi-use trails.
Oh. Yeah, that's all the questions from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The climbing community has been around for a long time. here. Is your organization basically composed of, to what degree is it composed of people who have been climbers here for a long time? And number two, how much? I've been aware that there's more people coming into this area to climb. Probably a bit behind the mountain bike popularity that's really developed in the past few years here. But can you comment on those two questions? Like, how much generational continuity is there in people coming in?
Yeah, I would say there's a fair bit of longstanding climbers in the area. For example, on our board, we are 7. 2 of them are longstanding members and have grown up in the area, gone into climbing. And then the 5 other of us have moved here in the last 5 years. So there is an influx. There's a lot of new climbers to the area that kind of came for that reason. A handful actually that I've met came specifically for the Eldred Valley. Yeah, so there's a fair bit of new, like you said, not as much as mountain biking, but there is interest, and people move here for the accessibility of rock climbing, and also the fact that the sport is available, but it's not as busy as in places such as Squamish, where there's a lot of rocks, but there's also a lot of people, and it's very busy.
Go ahead.
Thank you. How about the Upper Powell? So head of Powell Lake, those routes up there. Do you have anything to do with that area?
Yeah, I don't personally have any connection to the routes. I have not been up there yet, but one of our board members is someone who frequently climbs back there, and he's put up a few of the routes and has helped others through logistics getting up there. Because I know once you arrive by boat, there's still I think a 10-kilometer section till you're at the base of some of the bigger walls. Yeah, some of those walls are apparently 1.5 times the size of Yosemite and stuff like that, which is crazy to think about. I'd love to see it one day.
Helicopter.
Yeah, true.
Okay, thank you. Anyone who hasn't yet spoken? You haven't spoken yet, have you? No, great, really. You're not crossing it. You're all talk about it.
Thank you so much. So essentially, I'm gathering the ask is to be joined to these authorized list of volunteers that can work on trails, and it gives you access to insurance for your volunteers. Is that the whole gist of it?
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any further hands, so I'd like to thank you, Marty, very much for your presentation. And you're welcome to stay in the room if you like, and your issue will be considered later on in our meeting.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so are there any other unregistered delegations? Seeing none, we can move on to correspondence. You will see from the agenda that item 6.1 is now 7.1, 6.3 is now 7.2, and 6.4 is now 7.3 under business arising. Is there anything else under correspondence that anyone would like to pull? Seeing no hands, we can move on to 7.1, which is the former 6.1, regarding, and you have a motion in the package regarding following up on their concern. If there's a mover for this motion, that would be a good time to entertain that. Are you moving the motion?
Yes.
Okay, Director Paul is seconding. So thank you. Discussion. Yes, that's fine.
Yeah, thank you. I'm the delegate or the member of the BCMCLC. And this word went out, I guess, a month or more ago. Kind of alarm that there is no apparent inclusion of LGCAP in the 2027 provincial budget. So lobbying has been a bit of a fever pitch from Community Energy Association and these guys. I didn't total up the amount of money that has come to the RD, but it's somewhere in the neighborhood of over $700,000 to the city obviously less to DRD over the period of time that we had CAREP and then LGCAP. LGCAP amounts were a little bit higher. So it certainly has, if we had spent the money on, from tax money on these same usually mitigation type measures, obviously climate related, but their benefits are much broader as well, have to do with transit and active transportation and various, there's quite a range of applicable expenditures now. So it really, I think it's very worthwhile lobbying province to try to make sure that they will continue to give us this money.
Thank you. And the motion here also includes a meeting with the director.
Thank you.
And Director Fall, do you have your hand up?
Thank you so much, Chair. So I just wanted to pitch the idea that we've all got as local governments targets for the 2030 and making sure that we're lowering our greenhouse gases. We have infrastructure for various governments that require change in order to meet the requirements for new energy savings and so forth. And then we've also got, as a regional district, impacts expected like from climate change itself that require us to do things differently that cost money. And so one of the things that has been helping us do all of this is the LGCAP funds chipping in parts of the money to help us be able to afford to do all this shifting and changing that's as a result of global warming and lowering our greenhouse gases. And so if the government isn't planning to do LGCAP, then what is the expectation for municipalities to take on the burden of all that cost just with homeowners? And that seems to be the major question. What I think meeting with the minister needs to highlight is that seems incredibly short-sighted and not exactly well thought of. To just pull that budget and not have any kind of plan. There's no plan.
Downloading.
Yeah.
Further comment? No, I'm not seeing any for their hands. So could I please have a mover for this recommendation? Thank you. We got it? Okay, sorry. All right, is there any further discussion? Seeing no hands, all in favor? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. 7.2 is the correspondence regarding the housing action table, and you have the motion in the agenda. Is there a mover? Director Gisborne, Director Elliott, thank you. Discussion. Director Gisborne.
Yeah, it's been very kind of curious as to how the community housing fund rolled out, as well as government housing. I was calling, there was an online meeting where I believe it was the Capital Regional District's Housing Authority was giving a presentation, and they talked about all their partners and the various levels in order to actually deliver government supplied housing. And the question I'd asked was, the provincial government recently announced PST now applies to property management services. And does that PST also apply to their housing authority and all of its various partners? And their understanding was, yes, it does. So I find it kind of ironic that on one hand, the provincial government is now charging a tax for these, nonprofit government housing, and at the same time, they're cutting back on the grants to actually supply government housing. So that's where I think we can ask the question to say, like, hey, can you keep supplying it, even if it's just the money that you're taking from them?
Right, okay, so you're supporting the recommendation.
Yes, support the recommendation.
Okay, all right, thank you, Director.
Thank you. So the meeting of this group just happened yesterday. Or I think the day before. Monday. And I attended. Mark Osborne is our Director Osborne is our representative for the Confederation District. I think that the group is a good group. They're exchanging solid information and advocating in a good way. And we are participating in that group, and I think it's a really good idea for us to support this letter as part of that group, rather than trying to, we could also send letters ourselves. But to definitely partner with this group would be a good idea. Not only was there mention of the nonprofit housing folks that are running struggle to pay their city taxes, because the funding they're receiving to operate the existing affordable homes apparently doesn't include that as a expense item. And so they're struggling, and they're not allowed to raise rents because they're locked into a contract with BC Housing. And so they're pulling funds to help build new housing. They're adding taxes, and they're not even covering what is required for taxes for the city, for municipal government already. And so it's a huge offloading and removal of funds all at the same time. And so I don't even know if this letter should be the only thing we do, but this should be the least that we.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Director Riley. Further comment on this motion? I'm not seeing any hands, so we'll call for the vote. All in favor? Any opposed? Carried unanimously. So 7.3 is from the Texada Nonprofit Seniors Housing Society regarding waiving the Gillies Bay fee for their road rally.
So moved.
Moved and seconded, Lennox and Gilborn. Any discussion? I would just like to say that I think it's great that we're able to help this group. They have been struggling. They started from nothing, and they now have land and a plan, and they know where they're going. So appreciate the support around this table. That's all I have to say. And if there's nothing further, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried unanimously. Reports. First quarter strategic plan progress report. And there is a recommendation in our package.
Sorry, Chair.
But we can ask questions first before the recommendation.
Point of order.
Okay.
I don't know if we voted.
So on 7.3, you explained the item. I don't think we put it on the table properly.
We didn't vote it.
It's on
We
the,
voted without it being.
Moved second.
you know, it's on the table, but I don't, did we vote?
Yeah.
Okay, I missed it.
So I missed the getting it on the table and she missed the vote. So anyway, thank you very much, Chair.
As long as all the i's are dotted and.
Pretty sure.
That's what I was trying to do.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, all's good. So we're moving on to item 8.1. If there are questions about the report before we have a motion, now would be a good time. Otherwise, if someone would like to.
Just thanks, Chair. Just a quick question. I'm not sure which staff member, but when I look at the percentages that are, you know, out of 100, of course, at what point of the month, like at the cycle, are these populated? I know I asked that probably last year, the year before, but I'm a little fuzzy. Because if I look at it as of today, that might not be accurate, but as of, you know, Q1 or et cetera, but maybe a little definition.
Okay, Corp Dawson.
Thank you, Chair. So
Maybe.
goals are put in after each board meeting.
Okay.
Occasionally referrals from committees are entered in as well. And then those build over the year to the fourth quarter. Once the fourth quarter is complete, all completed, we end that cycle. We archive all items that have previously been reported out, and then we start again. So that's why this one is significantly lower than the last report you've seen. So is that?
Yes, thank you. And just a quick follow-up. So over on the right-hand side, where it's progress, that's that monthly sort of after that's where we should see what's the latest activity. Is that accurate?
Yes, and typically we do quarterly reporting here.
Yep, cool. Thank you.
Okay, and this is the first quarter for 2026. Director Gisborne.
Yes, I'm just looking on page 49 of 50. Dr. Gisborne's memo, the board directs staff to publish the videos of the service review sessions, and that's at 0%, but it shows a due date of 2027. I'm just wondering how is that coming along, and do we have a expected timeline at some point, or is it going to be later on? And if you don't have an answer, that's fine.
I might need to follow that up. That actually might be complete now. I'll need to follow up after the meeting with that question, just to see if they are on the. We just we'll follow up after the meeting and let you know where they are.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? If not, a motion to,
So
okay, Director Lennox, thank you, Director Southcott. Further discussion? Seeing, almost saw it again. Director Elliott?
I just wanted to thank staff for having this report where we can reference where we're at. It's very helpful.
Thank you. And I would echo an appreciation for making the reports shorter and getting rid of things that we're not doing anymore that are done. Thank you for that. Anything else on that? No? All in favor? Any opposed? Carried unanimous. 8.2, the Texada Island Community Hall theatrical curtain replacement, and I would entertain a motion. Director Osborne and Lennox. And if I could just have a brief comment, it's to say that this is supported by the Recreation Commission, and the curtain has been basically duct taped up together and held together, and it's really reached far beyond the end of its useful life. So, Director Powell.
I had a question. I fully support the motion, but I was just, when I read this, I was just wondering why we have to vote on it. And so maybe it's a question through the chair. Is it because there isn't sufficient funding in the kind of operations and maintenance line item of the, to make this an operational issue? Because clearly it's not that it's super cheap. Maybe it's the price, but it needs to be replaced. But I'm just wondering, why is this a board decision and not just part of the ongoing maintenance and upgrades of the hall?
Okay, we'll get you the answer to that, and I see Mr. Dever here. So, and he has his hand up, so we'll turn to you. Mr.
Yes,
Dever.
thank you, Chair. Through the chair, this proposal came from an advisory committee, and I remind the board that advisory committees do not direct staff's work, that the board does. So when it comes from an advisory committee, it has to come to the board to approve this work.
Right, very good, thank you. And for sure, I guess this is something that looks like it could have been replaced even a couple of years ago. So it's, I think, timely. Looks good. Thanks.
Oh, okay, Director Lennox.
yeah, thanks, Chair. I was gonna say, although this could add some character, the pictures here describe, to some of productions, I think it is high time that we support the replacement of the curtain.
Thanks, Director Lennox. Anything further? Seeing no hands, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried unanimous. We are now on to 8.3. Okay, the Texada Community Hall cell and internet service moved and seconded. Yeah, Osborne and Lennox. And just to comment on that, the community hall is our designated, one of our designated reception areas in the event of a disaster, in the event of an evacuation. And there's no or very minimal cell phone coverage and no internet coverage, which is why you'll recall we had our board meeting not at the community hall a couple of years ago, but at the senior center, where there is far better internet coverage. So to have a reception center in a disaster that isn't hooked up to the internet or cell phone is not really serving the community well. So that's why this is here. And I want to say I like this recommendation, although it's different than the options that were presented in the report. I like it because it's general and doesn't confine us to working with any particular provider. I trust corporate officer that's about getting the best deal that we can in that situation.
And in line with our procurement policy.
Right. Okay, sounds good. I'm happy. Any further questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried unanimously. Fire Department automatic aid. There's a recommendation in the report. Osborne and Lennox moved and seconded. Thank you. Discussion. Director Osborne.
Yeah, this little bit of deja vu. I think I moved a similar motion back in February. I'm really excited to actually see the auto aid move forward mainly because of in Area B, we do have some challenges, particularly up on Nootka and up behind Cranberry, where the MVFD, it'll take them a bit of time to get to those areas, and City of Powell River is actually closer as the vehicle drives. So if there's a house fire, the first that gets there is, ideal. So that's where I would like to see this move forward. And even if there, is some challenges between, the city and getting an automatic aid agreement, even if the auto aid agreement specifically applied to some of those kind of boundary challenges between, the municipality, electoral area B, and BFD, and then similar, I believe, with Tlalomin and Northside, where it's like, hey, if someone can get there first, it can save lives. It could, reduce the amount of spread of a fire. And with what's happened north of town, I think, getting there quick and dealing with it can make a big problem, not that big, even though it was a big problem. But yeah, so I'm very much in support of this motion, and I hope the rest of the assembly is in support as well.
Thank you. Okay, I've got a speakers list, Director Elliott and Director Fall, then I'll put myself on the list. Go ahead, Director Elliott.
So there was kind of a fire that spread from a house and into the forest this week in north of town in Oak River area. Would auto aid be something that was utilized in getting resources for that kind of event, or maybe someone knows whether we utilize that kind of stuff?
I see Mr. Toms is here. Oh, Mr. Toms.
Yeah, through the chair. Again, it's still early. We haven't really investigated. The answer to Director Elliott's question is likely yes. If you were going to pursue an automatic aid, it would likely provide for this kind of scenario.
Okay, because that scenario seems very likely since it's happening. So thank you.
Thank you, Director Elliott. Director Paul.
Thank you, Chair. I have a question through the chair to Mr. Toms, if I may, which is just clarify, a little bit more nuance on what the flexibility in an automatic aid agreement is. Because when this came up before, we talked about, the pros, of course, easy to articulate, resources can get there. But of course, if it's too restrictive, because it sets into place a requirement, which is a bit different from mutual aid, and then, to not over the risk is taking resources away when they're needed somewhere else. So I guess that flexibility and that nuance will come out in the report, and I just want to confirm or ask for maybe clarity through the chair and what the options, the range of options might look like in general, not the details, but in terms of just the range from a lot more heavy on the required response for automatic response versus a lot more discretion at the fire chief's level and so on.
We'll try to get you that answer, Mr. Toms.
Yeah, through the chair, again, simply put, yes, I would recommend the report come back with some options. Again, a little hard to know what those could possibly be, but there are examples out there across British Columbia of automatic aid agreements, and so you can see what others are doing in terms of balancing that. But there is the risk of sending resources more often that then get turned back. That's a reality of automatic aid too.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. My question has to do with the reference in the report to being the mainland fire departments. And I remember we talked a month or two ago about a different automatic aid, mutual aid. I'm not sure what kind of aid it was, but it included the departments on Texada. So I'm just wondering, and I guess Savory would be left out of this as well if it's a mainland. So I'm just wondering what the difference is between this agreement and the other agreements, and why it's just the mainland, not the islands. Mr. Toms?
Yeah, back through the chair, the mutual aid agreement or the fire department's emergency assistance agreement is one that does need to be manually triggered by the responding department, and it is the agreement that was recently agreed to by this board, and I believe is traveling around to the other 4 authorities, the nation, the city, and the 2 improvement districts on Texada for their endorsement. But it is the difference between manually triggering when your responding department gets to a scene and realizing that it wants more assistance or needs more assistance versus agreeing ahead of time that our fire dispatch in Campbell River will automatically dispatch more than just the department whose territory this is in. And that is a little more complicated and something that we just have not had here other than in a limited fashion in the past. And so the reason for not considering the islands simply is that automatically, of course, you cannot simply automatically drive from the mainland to the islands. And there will need to be manual decisions made regarding the transport. So, and that being said, and I don't think I'm speaking out of turn, that both the improvement districts have over the past years, I believe, developed automatic understandings between Gillies Bay and Van Anda. I'm not privy to that, but I've heard them speak to it. And that has been the understanding that there is already that level of support happening there. And that mutual aid, by all means, the hope and understanding is that we will send resources from the mainland to the islands or vice versa when necessary.
So it's just a follow-up question. Does the dispatch center in Campbell River automatically know or when to let the other departments know?
Through the chair, in an automatic, dispatch must understand this and have it already mapped and already into their systems for their dispatcher, regardless of which dispatcher is on the call, right? It's built into their computer dispatch system, as opposed to the mutual aid where the dispatcher is simply awaiting the responding officer to ask for those resources.
I understand. Thank you very much. I've got Director Lennox next on the speakers list.
Thanks, Chair, and very good description of the two different things we're talking about here, and I'm in full support of the recommendation. Really, it's everybody's well aware of what occurred out in Northside, and it was a great example of how mutual aid did work, right, and how our teams came together in a huge way. So, I mean, the system's working, but I think it is a mature move to understand what automatic really truly means and what strains that'll put on our systems and our people, what benefits we'll get out of it, and if it will be an improvement to our response. I appreciate the work that our staff is taking to give us all that. Thanks.
Yeah, I appreciate that as well. Director Gisborne?
Yeah, the second time around for me.
Anybody who hasn't yet spoken? Okay, go ahead.
Okay, just for everyone's understanding and clarification, mutual aid is, as explained by General Manager of Emergency Services, Ryan Toms. If there's an incident, the fire chief can call the other call the dispatch and get Powell Fire Department out, or vice versa. And that's what happened up in the north side area where the MVFD sent firefighters all the way out. Where auto aid differs is if there's an incident, the other department is called automatically. So when I look at this, if there's say a house fire in Black Point, does it really make sense to automatically call the City of Powell River's fire department to send out resources? Maybe, maybe not. That's not for me to say. But if there's a house fire up on Nootka, the MVFD, that's their service area. But of course, MVFD has to go through the City of Powell River to get to Nootka. And by the time they get there, they might realize that, oh, we actually need more resources here. And with an auto aid, there's a fire, say, up on Nootka, knock on wood that there isn't. The call will immediately go to the City of Powell River to say, hey, there's a fire up on Nootka. Please respond, if, of course, everyone signs the automatic aid agreement. And then by the time MVFD actually gets there, hopefully, knock on wood, that it's not a big issue, but it's that quick response time that can really, save structures, prevent fires from spreading into the woods, and save people's lives. So I think Area B has a much stronger interest in seeing an automatic aid agreement with the City of Powell River. But at the same time, I think it's going to come down to kind of geography and different areas where, there might be a fire next to, hall number 1 or hall number 2, and it doesn't really necessarily make sense to immediately automatically call the other departments. So that's where there's the two big differences. I'm hugely supportive of mutual aid, but we've endorsed that, and now we're looking at automatic aid, and I fully support the recommendation, the motion before us to have our staff and the Tlalonan staff and the City of Powell River staff to go and take a look at these challenges to go, hey, how is it that we can prevent small problems from getting even bigger or big problems from becoming catastrophic? So thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Director Gisborne. Anything further on this item? Seeing no hands, call for the vote. All in favor? Any opposed? Carried unanimously. 8.5, murals and graffiti walls, and you'll see the recommendation is to take no action. Is there a mover for that recommendation? Director Brander. Thank you, Director Southcott. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried. 8.6 is the liability for the Q Climbers Access and Development Association. Director Gisborne, you're moving it. Director Lennox, you're seconding.
Yes, Chair.
Discussion? Director Gisborne?
Yeah, we've provided similar liability coverage for other organizations, and we've heard from the delegation that they're doing similar work. And taking a look at their Facebook page, they're doing wonderful work on with outhouses and trail work. And I think, to be fair, give them the same thing.
Yeah, thank you. And I would agree with you, putting myself on the list, that the more groups we can support, like this, it more encourages other groups to be involved in maintenance and all that. So, Director Elliott.
Thank you. I also agree that including as many groups who regularly want to work on trails as possible is great. It saves us having trails that aren't accessible for whatever it is people are trying to do. I know that I saw the little list there of the existing folks, and we had the bikers. Does that also include? I hear the chain gang is out there all the time, doing the same kind of work, and I think they might be part of the Bikers Association. But if they're not, I'm just worried that they're out there doing stuff and not included. Does anyone have information about the chain gang and what they're doing?
Corporate officer.
Thank you. Financial services staff is not here today, so perhaps I could follow up. I'll ask them for that information and they can share it with you.
Okay. I just saw a group missing that I know is out there doing this all the time. That's all. I just wondered. Maybe they're part of the Bikers.
Okay, thanks, Director Elliott. Director Lennox.
Thanks, Chair. I just want to again support this. I think we all do. It's a small price to pay for an organization doing the right thing, stepping up, trying to get the right coverage. So I applaud that. And volunteerism, right? People actually stepping up to get out there and do stuff on their own volition is only, we should be supporting that as much as we can. And I just encourage you to consider your safety while you're out there and are way in the back country and, doing your little pre-job risk assessments and trying to get the right gear. That's the safety side of me. So I really support what you're doing. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Director Lennox. Anything further on this item? Director Powell.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks Director Lennox for his sage warnings and advice. But I just want to add to the conversation. I totally support this, and I think for the amount of financial cost to our taxpayers who we're doing this for, we're getting a major leverage. So this isn't just about this is a good group doing work that we support, and this is actually about efficient use of tax dollars. We're providing a small amount of money, and that group that will enable them to have more volunteers and leverage that up. And the amount of work that they're doing, if you quantified it, would be a lot more than $250 a year. So I think this is a really efficient use of tax dollars to leverage up volunteers, help them do stuff, and then, as Director Lennox said, keep them safe and keep us safe as well. So thank you.
Good thought. Anything else? I see no further hands, so we will vote. All in favor? Any opposed? Carried unanimous. We're now on to 8.7, which is the election procedure amendment bylaw. And this is a matter of changing secrecy envelopes to secrecy enclosures.
Move the recommendation.
Okay, Director Paul and Director Gisborne, thank you. Discussion? Seeing no hands, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried unanimous. And 8.8, UBCM convention attendance and meetings with staff. And there is a recommendation in the agenda. Is there a
Move the
mover? Director Lennox, thank you. Director Gisborne, second. Discussion. Well, I have a question to the corporate officer. When would we be putting forward the recommendation for minister meetings? And what is the deadline for putting those recommendations forward?
Through the chair, so it would be appreciated if you put forward the recommendations as soon as possible. Because we have to facilitate that work and meet the deadlines.
Okay, so would this be an appropriate time?
This would be an appropriate time, I believe. Is that correct, Rebecca? Yes, thank you.
Okay, well, I may have still got the floor here. I'm going to put forward.
There. Sorry, I should have been clear. Once this resolution is complete, then that would be the appropriate time.
Okay, so we passed the resolution.
Quite as soon as possible.
Okay, all right. Discussion on the resolution. Seeing no hands, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Okay, Director Fall, did you have your hand up?
Yes, thank you. I did have a recommendation for this
I'll put myself
that
on the list.
I forwarded to the corporate officer earlier in the meeting when my internet was going up and down like crazy. So it seems to be stable right now. I'll read it out if a corporate officer doesn't have it. But it's that the committee recommend.
I don't have
That the committee recommend. Oh, let me send it again. That the committee recommends to the board that the board schedules direct staff to schedule a meeting with the Minister of Transportation and Transit regarding options to ensure contract and operation accountability for the Lasqueti Island ferry route. If I get a second there, I'll explain a tiny bit.
Go ahead.
So just briefly, I'm meeting with the ferry committee tomorrow. We had a public meeting with Western Pacific Marine, the operator, a week and a half ago. Was fairly well attended, given that it was about 25 degrees and sunny outside on a Saturday. But there's always a lot of concerns about maintenance, and it's not so much it's not the operator per se. It's the fact that as an unregulated route, what actually happens is technically BC Ferries subcontracts Western Pacific Marine, and it's called an unregulated route, which is not necessarily a problem, except BC Ferries just gets money. The contract itself, the wording comes from the province. The province hands the money to BC Ferries. BC Ferries is the signatory, and the lack of accountability to ensure the contract is being met is really poor. We're not covered by the ferry commissioner. BC Ferries runs are regulated, meaning there's a ferry commissioner with a complaints process and accountability to make sure it happens under the Coastal Ferries Act. Unregulated routes aren't covered. So there's different options. That's why I put options. Some people say we need it to be regulated. I don't know if that's feasible even, but accountability is the issue, that when something goes wrong, when the contract's not being fulfilled, there's no venue for people to have accountability. BC Ferries doesn't want to have accountability because they got their own issues, as we all are aware. And the ministry isn't a signatory of the contract. The ministry signs the contract with BC Ferries, who signs a different contract with WPM. So it's this articulated system that's got its own problems. I won't go on about it, but really this is what I would like to talk, at least for a few minutes, with the minister, to be able to just say they need to, we really need them to look into how do you ensure accountability to make sure the contract is being fulfilled, these annual meetings, reporting, complaints process, things like that. And I'll provide, just as a follow-up, it's not even a follow-up, carry on. When I talk to the ferry committee tomorrow, I will let, I already told them I would want to do something like this. If this is passed, then the ferry committee can provide some information to staff. I can get the chair of the ferry committee in contact with our staff to figure out what the little, the one pager or whatever the briefing piece goes along with this.
Thank you, Director Powell. So are you moving?
It's moved and seconded.
Moved and seconded. Okay, further discussion on this motion regarding the Lasqueti ferry. Not seeing any hands. So all in favor? Any opposed? Carried unanimously. Corporate officer?
I was just going to say I have something for you, I believe.
Yes. So I'm going to put a motion on the table, which our corporate officer has the wording of, and it's regarding meeting with Brittany Anderson, local or rural government minister, regarding the improvement district policy modernization, which we have already passed a motion requesting. And so it's a meeting to basically lobby the minister to bring that to their attention, that this really needs to be updated. So that is the motion. And
So that the committee recommended to the board that the board seek a meeting at UBCM 2026 with Brittany Anderson, Minister of State of Local Government and Rural Communities, and Christine Boyle, Minister of Housing and Municipal Affairs, regarding modernizing the 2006 policy regarding improvement districts access to grants. Is that what we're?
Yeah. Or MFA, or lower cost loans through MF.
Access to.
Okay, so I would move that.
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to.
Discussion, go ahead, Director Lennox.
Thanks, and I appreciate that. I understand, you know, I totally get it that we all have, we want to speak to ministers and their staff. Along these lines, I totally support where you're getting at. We've been through this a lot about the 2006 policy that affects all improvement districts. And we all know where Lund is at, and the activity, we had a meeting last night that was the most well attended. I was virtual and it was crazy. Thank you, Director, for being on there. But my point is that that situation with an improvement is at the point of, you know, decision making and things as we approach the fall. So I was going to make a similar recommendation to meet with MLA, we know Walrus, or MLA Neal, and MLA Boyle and MLA Andor, right? Because those are the ministries that are involved with water. And I wouldn't even mind meeting on both of these topics because they go together. So I think we could make a good case and save ministerial time if we approach it. For example, in London, we need to push that across the finish line in a number of ways with different ministries, whether it's different grants that are in play or different support we need from those ministries. And we need that policy for all improvement districts to be changed. So I just suggest that we could, I don't know how to, you know, what the best approach is, but those same ministries are who I want to talk to push the ball across the line for Lund and the users and taxpayers. So
Yeah, I'm wondering if, because there's different ministers involved, because mine is strictly about changing policy, whereas the Lund is far more down that
specific
delivering water. I just wonder, because of different ministries, if we should keep them separate. I'm open to either way on that.
Thanks, and I guess that's why it was encouraging when Minister Anderson was appointed to do just this, to bring these ministers. This is actually, I humbly suggest, a great example how that minister should take this and try to actually facilitate that. So maybe if that's, you know, that's where my head's at as far as, you know, bringing these ministries together. They know about the topic. I don't, like, again, it's not going to take too long, but again, we're at that point in time where they all need to know exactly what's going on.
Okay, thank you. So just to be clear, I see Director Elliott and Gisborne, but I put a motion on the table and you're suggesting that motion be expanded to include the Lund situation. So yeah, you're just putting that out there. All right, so I have Director Elliott and then Director Gisborne.
Thank you, Chair. So I think even though it's complicated and involves different ministries, that we can have a single briefing note that we use in different meetings. So we're using similar examples. And so just a little more history of Lund. So back when my sister was in charge of the Lund Waterworks, and they were identifying things that needed upgrading and funding and couldn't get it. The longevity of the time where they hadn't access to it and there's not enough users to generally try to do what we're trying to do, has contributed to where they're at right now. And so in order to avoid all of the user groups being in similar pinches or having a better plan than what's executed there, it might be great to use the Lund Water Works example as the basis for our briefing to whatever minister we're talking to, right? So the ask is about the access to grants, here's a really good reason why.
Right.
And so that the ministers are all hearing the same story, even if there's different asks at different levels or different ministers. So that's just my thinking on how to be strategic about it.
Okay, thank you. No, it's a good thing, interesting points of view, and I like this discussion. Corporate officer?
It might be beneficial to, analyze the data that we have here about how many water systems within the regional district have approached us about conversion or have asked that too as part of the review note. Because Lund is one of the services in our region, but we have multiple times considered from every single electoral area.
Right.
There has been there's been a conversion request or consideration or a community from each area. And so maybe that data might be helpful, summarized. So, with 155 water systems.
Yeah, we don't want to all end up like London. Next on the speaker's list is Director Gisborne.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to thank Director Lennox and Director Elliott for the comments on this, because I attended the AGM for the Lund Water Improvement District last night, and I believe we heard the receiver, Frances Ledre, at one point said, well, when she was asked by the province to come and be the receiver, I think she said it would be like 20 hours a month or something, and it would be
a year or two.
and about a year. And the province's policy is they want improvement districts to go away and for them to be converted into local government services. And I think one of the messages we can bring to the table when it comes to Lund is, hey, province, be careful what you wish for, because you just might get it. So what's happened in Lund is they've actually said, hey, if we go through this process and we comply with this process of the 2006 policy, we can get these grants. Well, what that did was it caused the improvement district to hand the keys to the province, and now the province is trying to hand us the keys, and of course it's not that simple. So it's really a good example. We go hand in hand to go to the province and say, hey, your policy makes it seem so simple and easy, but it's not. And you can ask your own receiver, you told your receiver this is what you thought it would take, but it's so much more than that. And a lot of these problems can be resolved, by doing a pinch of prevention rather than a pound of problem later on down the line. And that's where a lot of these small improvement districts are saying, hey, if we get some smaller grants to kind of maintain our systems, the volunteers are doing the administration, the volunteers are looking after the service. And just because it goes to a regional district or a municipality doesn't mean suddenly all the problems disappear. It doesn't mean the regional district's not going to keep turning around and saying, keep giving us more money. So I actually am completely in support of what Director Lennox and Director Elliott are saying, is these two, they kind of go hand in hand, because the policy by itself, the province looks at that and goes, no, this policy is great. But until you actually see where the rubber hits the road, the province will then go like, oh, maybe this isn't working the way we wanted it to, which can help us advocate and change their mind to say, no, the policy needs to change, because it's really not working for us and it's not working for them either. So, yeah.
Yeah, okay, so I'm convinced, and so we would need to rewrite the motion or amend the motion to include, officer, help me here. Is there a way to amend this motion to include Lund?
I would just humbly add to include Lund as a case study.
Okay.
Just in those words, I think our staff completely understand what our intent is. We've been very clear, and unless we need something more.
So we could even put a comma. It says it's regarding modernizing the 2006 policy regarding improvement districts, and provide the example of
Use or,
Okay, so would be example singular, I think. Example of Lund.
Lund Improvement District.
Case study?
yeah, more
As an example.
as a case study.
Basically, Lund needed funds 20 years ago.
Yeah.
It's a case study. It's just,
Okay.
we want to try to improve it for everybody.
All right, so our corporate officer is just wording here, so.
For the committee's benefit, when we elevate it to
The board.
you know,
You'll have the
having-
wording sorted out.
Okay.
you'll be able to see what we've come up with.
Sorry, corporate officer.
No. This is one of those items where this often happens as we're sitting here. And so we'll just make sure the wording is correct at board level.
Okay, and so we do have a motion on the table. What is the right procedure then?
A friendly amendment?
So thank you through the chair.
This as a friendly amendment?
If everybody agrees, then you're able to just proceed like this was the original motion.
All right. Is everyone agreeable to including this? Yes, yes, I'm seeing nods and thumbs up, so,
Does
okay.
anybody disagree?
Does anyone
That's a good question.
Nobody is indicating that they disagree. All right, so we'll accept that then as a friendly amendment. Okay, and so we can pass this motion with the friendly amendment with the wording to be finalized in time for the board meeting. And that's not today's board meeting, that's the next. All right, everybody cool with that? So, yeah, okay, so we're they take a vote, all in favor? Any opposed? Very unanimous. Okay, so we got no.
Elliot has her hand up.
I'm sorry.
Osborne has his hand up and Director Lennox.
No, I didn't.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, Director Elliott.
Thank you. It seems like we were trying to address which minister meetings we want to do today. I wasn't quite realizing we had to do that today, but I did have some advice to ask for. So I'm thinking that I would like to put forward a motion to meet with Minister Radhika Kalan regarding the suspension of housing funding and how it's interacting with all of the increases in PST and operations for housing operators in our small area. And also with Minister Randy Neal regarding the issue of the watershed management plan. Sustainable, I can't remember the exact name of it, but but by that time, I'm sure we will want to be advocating for that. And we certainly want that on the table as something that their mind is on. And so I didn't have motions sorted out for that yet, nor the background and things that would normally go forward when you're making these requests. And so my advice, I'm asking for advice from the committee and the corporate officer, whether it would be better to work together and bring them to the next meeting, or whether we put them on the table with bare bones at this point and try to flesh them out as time goes on.
Corporate officer, which would you prefer?
I think I would prefer what the committee prefers.
Good answer.
But what might be beneficial is, so we have two that are going up to the board and will be presented that way. Perhaps if we set time frame of Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. to provide the recommendations, minister meetings you would like the board to consider at their next meeting, not today's meeting, but at the next one. So that could be a way to handle this. Keeping in mind that each minister is limited to typically 3 meetings. So each minister you're only allowed to submit 3 meeting topics for each one. So that might be a process that this committee would like to recommend for how to do it for ones that aren't prepared to provide it today. Staff will work with whatever. We'll try to get these going because it's important to try to get the meetings in as close to when they're opened.
Right. So then what your suggestion is that we draft whatever motion, include whatever background information, and get that to you by 10 o'clock Tuesday. And that will go to the board for consideration.
So, I'm okay with whatever, process we propose and, would be okay with that. I just wondered how to work with the committee and the staff to do what I'm trying to do, that's all.
What I like about the process, Ms. Jones outlined is that it gives everyone a chance, like Rob, you might have been thinking, or Clay, you might have been thinking of something and haven't brought it forward yet. Gives everyone on the committee, all of our board members, an opportunity to think about, any possible meetings that we could have and to justify that and to write that up for Tuesday. So it kind of throws it open equally to everybody. So I do like what she's proposed, but this committee has not yet made a decision on that. So I'm open to your suggestions.
I'm good with the proposed process. If we need a vote, we can vote on it. If we just follow that process, I'm good with that.
Okay.
I'll leave it to you, Chair.
Ms. Jones, do we need a vote to do what you said?
Yeah, I was thinking along the same vein, and I'm happy to submit mine, coming up on, I think that's the June the 2nd, on the Tuesday before our next board meeting. And I believe the deadline is the 24th, and the item I was gonna put forward was meeting with Minister Popham, Minister of Agriculture, regarding residential flexibility on the ALR. And the reason I was gonna suggest that one is I see lots of local governments wanting to meet with Ravi and Randy and Neil, but I hardly ever see anyone asking to talk to the Minister of Agriculture, and maybe that's something that might be open. So I'll submit mine by email to the corporate officer before June the 2nd, if that's okay with everyone around the table.
Increase your odds of success.
Have already on the table, or do we need to bring that forward? Or was that part of the motion we made?
Well, that motion we've already made.
Okay.
Is that correct?
I'm sorry, I didn't.
7-1.
6.
Oh, no, the meeting with Minister Calmont. I don't think we voted on that.
LGCAP is funding. I think it was part of the motion in 7.1. So I'm saying there's nothing further needed for that one. Okay.
There you go.
Okay. So, do we need to have a vote on getting the stuff to you by Tuesday, or are we okay? Just on that understanding.
I'm fine. I don't need a vote for that. That is just the process. They're saying this is the process.
Yeah,
There you
no, okay, all right. So we're all clear on what's going on.
Voted
You have
in
until
letters.
Tuesday, 10 a.m. Put forward any motions we have regarding meetings with minister.
Roger.
Okay, so that concludes 8.8. This is something that I'm forgetting. And nobody's reminding me of, so that's fine. There are no items of new business, so that brings us to question period.
Hello, Chair Galinsky from the Peak here. I didn't catch the name of the unregistered delegate, and I'm hoping the corporate officer can get that to me.
Yes.
I also understand he was the treasurer, but I'm not sure about that.
He said he was the treasurer, and Ms. Jones has his name and the spelling.
Thank you, through the chair. Marty Heroux, MartyHeroux.
Could I get the surname again, please?
Heroux, Heroux. Or, yes.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. That was my question, Chair.
Okay, thank you so much. So we do have an in-camera session proposed. You're moving it, Director Gisborne, and Director Southcott is seconding. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? We're going in camera.
finally remembered stuff.
Recording in progress.
Welcome back to Committee of the Whole. We have no rise and report today, so our meeting is adjourned. Thanks for joining us.